We have this clip. So this is Ontario's Education Minister, Stephen Lecce. And so he says now all of a sudden that he's going to be standing up for parents' rights to know if their kids are secretly transitioning in schools. And we saw school boards institute this policy dating back, I think, even to like 2019, pre-COVID era. Where they were saying things like, if your child wants to transition, and that's in regards to socially transition, so they want to go by a different name or have different pronouns, then the school could institute that in school without telling the parents at home that the children were undergoing this social transition at school. And we saw in, I think it was New Brunswick, I believe it was, where they brought forward the bill 92, I think. Let me double check all that. Let's play the clip of Stephen Lecce where he says he's going to be taking a stand for parents' right to know what's going on in the classroom.
Will Ontario bring in policies like we've seen in New Brunswick and now Saskatchewan to require that parents be informed if their children change gender identity at school? And I would love to hear from Patricia about this as well.
Look, I think it's important to note that every school must be safe for every child. I think we understand, though, that parents, must be fully involved and fully aware of what's happening in the life of their children. I mean, often there are health implications, and I think we have to respect the rights of parents, recognizing that these can be life-changing decisions. And I think parents want to be involved so that they can support their kids. And I think that's a really important principle that we must uphold.
Is that you are going to require it then, like with legislation?
We're simply making clear as a province that we believe parents should be fully involved, fully aware of what's happening to their children. And these are significant changes, and they have a right to know. And so we would expect school boards to be transparent with parents, as we always have.
How do you respond to the criticism we've heard from, that it puts some LGBTQ kids at risk, where maybe they're not, their home environment's not a safe place for them to be out or to have a different gender identity?
No, for sure. I mean, this is why I led with the recognition that safety must prevail, the safety of the child, both at home and in school. For there are exceptional circumstances where there can be situations of potential harm to a child. Educators are well versed on exactly what to do and who to turn to if they believe that child may be harmed for whatever reason or whatever circumstance. We will always safeguard the right of children to be safe. We'll always ensure that that is the case. Educators do amazing work to recognize the signs and the changes in behavior and energy and attitude. They really do wear many hats, and we're grateful for what they do. But there's a well-established protocol to ensure the safety of children, and I have every confidence that what has been the case for many years will continue to be, that they can leverage those that protocol if they believe something potentially could put the child at risk. But as I say, as an overarching value system, I really do believe that parents need to be fully aware, fully engaged, and school boards need to be transparent with parents. I mean, they are the legal guardians. They love their kids. They want to be aware of what's happening in the life of their children in their schools. And I think that is really important that they know.
Your position is that they should, but there's not a requirement to report or anything like any directive like that from the Ministry of Education.
School boards will have policies. I'm just affirming to you the province's position on the matter quite clearly, which is parents have a right to know, and we will respect parental rights. We think boards must do the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that comes in light of, as I mentioned, some boards instituting this policy that parents should not be informed if their child decides to socially transition. And this follows suit with Saskatchewan, New Brunswick, as he mentioned there. The Manitoba Premier has also defended parental rights. And we saw, so in Saskatchewan specifically, Scott Moe came out and they were launching an investigation after Planned Parenthood brought, I forget what they were called exactly, but these sex cards into schools which taught children really horrific expletives about based sexual activities, and parents were outraged to find out that this content was brought into the school system and shared with their very young learners. And so they launched an investigation into this. And so we're seeing kind of this ricochet, this ripple effect across all of the provinces, as parents become increasingly aware of and concerned about this inappropriate content. Yeah, this these are the sex cards here. Drea did a full report on it. I'm not sure if we can show that tweet right there. Some of the things that were shared on these sex cards. It was just horrific. I can't, H is for half and half. And they had like these graphic depictions. Anyway, you can go back and search out that report and some of the cards that were shared in the classroom, right? These are publicly funded institutions, and parents are not being given the information to decide whether or not they want their children exposed to this. Parents are being kept in the dark, and that's where parents are starting to get increasingly concerned and aware of what is happening in their individual schools, because the boards put forth this policy, and arguably it comes from the province first and foremost, right? It's all under this SOGI 123, sexual orientation and gender identity 123, under the EDI policies, that's equity, diversity and inclusion. And the province of Ontario actually institutes these policies and these pieces of legislation, but they're so ambiguously worded that they're really open to the interpretation of the teacher teaching them. So unless you have good rapport with your teacher, or you know kind of where your teacher stands on some of these issues, it can be really radical what these children end up being exposed to. And it's not streamlined. There's no way to know what you're going to get at any given school year, because it's up to the interpretation of the teacher. And I think that's where this territory gets really dangerous, because teachers can choose to just, we're not really going to go there. We're just going to stick to actual curriculum, like our ABCs and our 1, 2, 3s and reading, writing, and arithmetic, what school used to be about, instead of all these strange ideologies and theories that aren't really based on any sort of merit or fact. And so what Stephen Lecce has done here in Ontario is he's introduced this piece of legislation, and I had a written piece about it at the beginning of the month, where the headline is Ontario schools are pressured to get back to basics, but will they comply? And so Lecce introduced the Better Schools and Student Outcomes Act, and it's supposed to do what he was saying in that press conference, which I have my doubts, but we'll see if the proof is in the pudding. And it's supposed to urge school boards to get back to basics and be transparent, listen to the voices of parents, and get some accountability on the boards as well, with this increase in what his own government has instituted. That's where there's a real disconnect here. But basically what I tie it into is, at the end of the article, Karen Brown, who's the president of Canada's largest education union, she recently referred to these concerns that I'm reiterating to you about parents, the parental concerns. She called them homophobic, that they're rooted in homophobia and transphobia. And I don't know if we have time. I know we're running up against the clock. It's 2:04, but let's just play this clip really quickly. It's at the very end of this article, and I'll share it to be posted here and shared more broadly with our viewers. So I think it's really important to see what these unions are advocating for. Yeah, here she is. Let's have a listen.
Schools are wonderful places where students thrive every day. This is much more than a building, and these buildings, our schools, should not be viewed as real estate to turn a profit. Public education in Ontario delivers on its promise of high-quality learning. And in our public elementary schools, learning is possible because of the dedicated efforts of ETFO educators. Despite funding shortfalls, inadequate student supports, and a lack of meaningful action on equity from this government, it is you, the teachers, designated early childhood educators, and education support workers who make public education work, while the Ford government is busy creating a crisis in public education. I see elementary educators adapting to meet the diverse needs of students, fostering stronger, vibrant communities, and creating safe spaces. With the alarming rise of homophobia and transphobia, disguised as concern for our children, our federation's work to build a more just society is even more necessary. We must continue to work to ensure human rights, equity, and inclusion are not eroded. When we push back together as workers, allies, parents, and guardians, we win. Let us move together towards a future where every student thrives, every worker is valued, and our collective power prevails.
Yeah, there you have it.
How about help defund public education? I think that would be a lot better for all of us. No, it's truly atrocious. I mean, honestly, watching that, all I could think of was, why are we paying for this propaganda? It's unbelievable. And To think about what's actually happening in our schools right now. I mean, your teachers, the teachers of your children, they're not your friends. They're not your neighbors. They're not your blood relatives. They're strangers. And those strangers have your child for, X amount of hours in a day, every day. And they teach and talk about sexually explicit things with your child without you there. I don't know what parent is okay with that at a surface level. And I understand that they try and hype these numbers up. They try and make it seem as though everybody thinks this way and you are the outsider. That's what they always try and do. They keep enforcing this this state of reality they live in onto other people. And realistically, nobody wants to give up their children to the state. And that's what this is, because they perpetually want to increase the amount of government control in your life. And that includes the lives of your children. And this is the next way they can do that.
Yeah. And that's exactly why we launched that campaign at stopclassroomgrooming.com.